We've all heard those creepy stories. The ones passed around at parties, told by a friend who swears it happened to someone they know, or whispered late at night just to freak everyone out. Most of the time, you brush them off as made-up nonsense, right? But what if some of them were actually true? That's the thing about myths. They hook us with the what-if factor. And every once in a while, they're more than just stories. If you're ready to have your mind blown, here are 15 disturbing myths that turned out to be true. Brace yourself for some unsettling truths. Number 15. Creepy clowns. Long before the creepy clown craze of 2016, a different jester was terrifying the kids of Chicago, Homie the Clown. Let's just say he was like a super creepy version of Damon Wayans' Homie D, but this one was real. Back in 1991, kids all over the city were freaking out, telling stories about a clown driving a white van near schools. They said he was trying to lure kids with candy and cash, and the rumors spread like wildfire. Parents were panicked, schools were on edge, and the police were flooded with calls. Some news channels brushed it off as just a myth, while others reported that the authorities were taking it pretty seriously. For weeks, the entire city was on high alert, and no one really knew what to believe. And then, just like that, Homie the Clown vanished. No arrests, no answers, nothing. Was he ever real or just a bizarre case of mass panic? Well, who knows, but one thing's for sure. We're not going to watch Jester. Chapter 2. Number 14. The Kraken. If there's an Oscar for myths that have terrorized sailors for centuries, this one would win hands down. Sailors told scary tales of a massive sea creature with long, grasping tentacles capable of dragging ships into the depths. While it sounds like pure fantasy, the legend of the Kraken likely stems from real-life sightings of the giant squid, aka Architeuthis ducks. These deep-sea giants can grow up to 43 feet in length and have eyes as large as dinner plates. For centuries, the only proof of their existence came from dead specimens washed ashore or bits of tentacles found in the stomachs of sperm whales. It wasn't until 2004 that researchers captured the first photos of a live giant squid in its natural habitat, over 2,900 feet below the surface. While you won't see the Kraken pulling ships under, the giant squid proves that myths can sometimes have a grain of truth. Number 13. The Legend of the Bunny Man. Virginia in the 1970s wasn't just about bell-bottoms and disco. It was also home to one of the weirdest myths, the Bunny Man. According to the story, an escaped mental patient started hanging gutted bunnies from a bridge. The unsettling twist? He eventually moved on to hanging people instead. Locals dubbed the underpass Bunny Man Bridge and swore it was cursed, especially on Halloween. But the legend wasn't entirely made up. In October 1970, a man in a white suit and bunny ears was spotted yelling at a couple for trespassing on his property. To drive the point home, he hurled a hatchet at their car. 2 weeks later, he showed up again, this time hacking at a porch with the same hatchet. Despite police efforts, the so-called Bunny Man was never found. Whether he was real or a figment of collective hysteria, the thought of a grown man in bunny ears with an axe, well, it's scary. We think from now on, we're not going to eat bunnies. Number 12. The Dog Boy. Well, forget about cryptids. The Dog Boy wasn't some mythical beast, but a very real human with a terrifying reputation. Gerald Bettis earned the nickname as a child in the 1950s, thanks to his disturbing habit of capturing stray dogs and cats, only to torture them. By the time he was an adult, Gerald wasn't just cruel, he was monstrous. With a height of 6 feet 4 inches and a weight of 300 pounds, he towered over his parents, whom he terrorized relentlessly. His father died under suspicious circumstances, and his mom was finally rescued by Adult Protective Services after falling and breaking her hip. Gerald was sent to prison, where he later died, but the horrors tied to his name didn't stop there. Today, his childhood home in Arkansas is said to be haunted. Visitors report lights flickering, objects moving, and sightings of a large man wandering the halls, sometimes with a cat in his arms. It's safe to say the dog boy left a long shadow. Number 11. Candyman. Say his name 5 times in the mirror. Sounds like a bad idea, right? Candyman, the 1992 horror classic, and its 2021 reboot, gave us one of the most chilling urban legends ever. But while the part about a ghostly killer might be fiction, the idea of someone lurking behind your bathroom mirror? That's disturbingly real. In 1987, Ruth McCoy, a Chicago woman, called 911 in terror, claiming someone was breaking into her apartment. Tragically, she was later found dead of gunshot wounds. The horrifying detail behind this tragedy? Well, it goes like this. Her killers entered by removing the medicine cabinet in her bathroom. The housing complex had been designed so that maintenance workers could access pipes this way, but burglars and murderers figured it out too. The idea of a shadowy figure bursting through your mirror is enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Maybe keep that bathroom light on tonight just in case. Number 10. Atlantis. No, Atlantis isn't real, but let's be honest. It's one of the most fascinating myths ever told. The story of an advanced island civilization swallowed by the sea has captivated imaginations for millennia. And while no one's discovered a hidden underwater utopia, the legend has roots in real-world events. Plato's tale may have been inspired by natural disasters that wiped out ancient communities. Helike, a city in Greece, vanished beneath the waves after an earthquake and tsunami. Then there's Santorini, once a single volcanic island that erupted catastrophically, reshaping its landscape forever. These events may not match Atlantis's grandeur, but they prove that nature can do some pretty dramatic storytelling of its own. While you won't find crystal towers or advanced alien technology down there, the idea of lost civilizations buried under the sea is one that keeps our imaginations afloat, and maybe in the future, we'll join them. Number 9. The Maine Hermit. For nearly 3 decades, residents and vacationers near North Pond, Maine, had a mystery on their hands. Food would vanish from cabins, batteries would disappear, and flashlights would be swiped from tents. Rumors swirled about a shadowy figure lurking in the woods. Turns out, the rumors were true. Christopher Knight, better known as the North Pond Hermit, lived in the woods for 27 years, surviving almost entirely on stolen goods. He avoided detection by memorizing the routines of local residents, striking only when he knew no one was around. By the time he was caught in 2013, Knight admitted to committing around 1,000 burglaries. Living in total isolation, Knight became something of a legend. While his actions were far from heroic, his ability to evade capture for nearly 3 decades left many locals both awestruck and deeply unsettled. It's a story that's equal parts fascinating and eerie, much like the hermit himself. Number 8. Polybius. In the early 1980s, arcade goers in Oregon whispered about a mysterious game, Polybius. Unlike the bright, flashy cabinets of its time, this one was plain black, unmarked, and strangely hypnotic. Players reported feeling dizzy, disoriented, and even amnesiac after playing. Some claimed it was so addictive they couldn't stop, while others swore teenagers vanished after being seen at the machine. The most bizarre part? Witnesses described men in black suits periodically servicing the game, collecting data, and disappearing. Naturally, rumors swirled. Was this part of a Cold War experiment? A sinister offshoot of MK Ultra? Polybius vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. No physical trace of the machine has ever been found, and yet the myth endures. Real or not, it taps into a universal fear. The idea that even something as cool as a video game could be used to manipulate and control us in ways we'll never understand. Number 7. Poisoned Halloween candy. Halloween candy inspections have become a ritual, but have you ever wondered why? The idea of razor blades in apples or poisoned Tootsie Rolls seems more myth than reality, right? Well, not entirely. The paranoia really took off in the 1980s, fueled by the infamous Tylenol poisonings, where tampered bottles led to multiple deaths. But one case truly solidified the fear. In 1974, an 8-year-old boy died after eating cyanide-laced pixie sticks. The culprit? Well, it was none other than his own papa, who had taken out a life insurance policy on him. Despite the chilling truth behind some incidents, most stories about poisoned candy have little evidence to back them up. However, the tradition of checking Halloween loot persists, and maybe that's not such a bad thing. After all, it's not just about safety, it's about savoring the thrill of spooky season while giving parents a chance to snag a few treats for inspection purposes, of course. Number 6. Charlie No-Face. If you lived in Beaver County, Pennsylvania in the mid-1900s, you might have heard the tale of Charlie No-Face. He was said to haunt the dark roads, a faceless figure glowing green in the moonlight. But the truth? It's far more tragic than spooky. Charlie was actually Ray Robinson, a man horribly disfigured at the age of 8 after accidentally touching live wires. His injuries left him without eyes, a nose, and most of his facial features. Knowing his appearance frightened people, Ray became nocturnal, walking along Route 351 under the cover of darkness. Locals who crossed paths with him often spread exaggerated stories, but those who stopped to talk discovered a kind, quiet man who just wanted a semblance of normal life. Ray passed away in 1985, leaving behind a legacy that's part local legend, part cautionary tale, and a reminder of how easily humanity turns the misunderstood into monsters. Number 5. The Richmond Vampire. Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond, Virginia, is home to an infamous legend, the Richmond Vampire. They say it hides in the mausoleum of W. Poole, an ancient evil banished from England. The myth gained steam in 1925 after a railway tunnel collapsed nearby. Rescuers claimed to have seen a blood-covered, jagged-toothed creature crouching over a victim. The truth, however, is a little less supernatural. The vampire was likely Benjamin Mosby, a railway worker caught in the collapse. He suffered gruesome burns and broken teeth when the train boiler exploded. Dazed and barely alive, Mosby managed to escape the rubble and fled toward the James River for relief. Witnesses, shocked by his horrific injuries, mistook him for something monstrous. Mosby died later that day, but his story morphed into legend. The mausoleum? Just an eerie coincidence. Still, the tale of the Richmond Vampire keeps locals and visitors intrigued, and perhaps just a little spooked. Number 4. The Golden Fleece. Jason and the Argonauts may have set sail on a mythic quest, but the Golden Fleece they sought might not have been entirely fictional. In the mountains of modern-day Georgia, farmers have used a fascinating method to extract gold for centuries, laying sheepskins in streams to catch gold particles washing down from the peaks. It's brilliant, really. Why pan for gold when you can let a sheep do the work? This ancient technique isn't just a cool tradition. It might actually be the origin of the myth. Greek traders traveling through the Black Sea region likely saw the sheepskins glinting with gold and wove the story into legend. Sure, Jason's tale is packed with dragons and peril, but at its heart, it's probably a case of ancient Greeks being awestruck by some clever farmers with innovative gold collecting methods. So while the fleece wasn't magic, it sure was golden, and that's almost as good. Number 3. Svalin. The Norse had a knack for turning natural phenomena into epic stories, and Svalin is no exception. In the Grimnismal, Odin describes a shield that stands between the earth and the sun, preventing it from scorching the land. It's a poetic explanation, but when you think about it, Svalin sounds a lot like the ozone layer. Coincidence? Maybe. But the idea that something invisible protects the Earth from the sun's blazing heat is eerily accurate. Without it, life on Earth would be toast, literally. Sure, the Norse didn't have the science to explain UV radiation, but they understood the sun's destructive power well enough to craft a myth about a cosmic sunblock. So, while Svalin isn't a shield held by a god, the comparison works. It's a reminder that ancient myths, for all their dragons and giants, often contain kernels of truth, or in this case, an early nod to atmospheric science. Number 2. The Leaping Lawyer. Some legends are so bizarre that they feel made up, like the story of a lawyer who crashed through his office window while trying to prove it was unbreakable. Sadly, this one's all too real. In 1993, Gary Hoy, a senior partner at a Toronto law firm, had a peculiar party trick. He'd run full speed into the tempered glass windows of his 24th floor office to show how strong they were. And for years it worked, until it didn't. During a demonstration for visiting law students, Hoy hurled himself at the window one last time. The glass held, but the frame gave way, and Hoy tragically fell to his death. It's a grim tale, but it's also a cautionary one. Even the brightest minds can overestimate their safety. Hoy's story isn't just urban legend. It's a stark reminder that some risks just aren't worth taking, especially when gravity's involved. Number 1. Orichalcum. The name orichalcum sounds like something plucked from a fantasy novel, and in a way it is. The metal, described as gold-like and highly prized, was supposedly mined in Atlantis. For centuries, people assumed it was just a legend, until a sunken ship off Sicily rewrote the story. Discovered in 2015, the 2,600-year-old wreck contained ingots of what's believed to be orichalcum. Turns out it's not a mythical material, but an early form of brass, an alloy of copper and zinc with a golden sheen. While it lacks the magic aura of Atlantis, orichalcum was still a luxury in its time, used in ornaments and sacred artifacts. Sure, it's not Atlantis' treasure chest exciting, but finding real-world connections to mythical materials is fascinating in its own right. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.